There are oodles and oodles of research. That's a technical term, by the way.
Oodles, yes.
Oodles that show how chatter in the form of rumination, worry, perseveration can sink people across the board, whether it is people working in the creative arts or performance. More generally, just recently, the World Health Organization put a price tag on the cost of anxiety and depression, which we know chatter fuels in the workplace. And for the global economy, it was over $1 trillion.
One of the things that really struck me about your research in this book that I want people to better understand about the power of this chatter is how it affects your executive function. Because I got to the point where I had been training for these obstacles multiple times per week. And one of the thoughts that went through my head right before they said go was I looked down at my feet and I said, oh crap, which one is my right foot? I forgot my left and my right about 5 seconds before I had to go, and I needed to lead with my right foot on the first obstacle, and I forgot. And that happens to a lot of people, whether it's in a conversation or an argument or they're speaking on stage. Explain to us how all of these limiting beliefs are not only just thoughts, but they can actually affect the way that we perform.
So first of all, I love that you did American Ninja Warrior. I feel like, I've set some audacious goals for myself, but they've involved, figuring out how to mulch my lawn. So you've raised the stakes a little bit. So let's start with you touched on a lot of things in that anecdote that I want to come back to in turn. Let's start with executive function and performance and what chatter does. And it's really simple. Chatter breaks down performance, and it does so in ways that can be quite consequential. So there are two ways that chatter can sink us when we're under the spotlight, whether it be the American Ninja Warrior spotlight or the NBA finals, or having to just compute a set of computations or work on a problem at work. One thing that happens when we experience chatter is it consumes our attention. Now, we only have so much attention that we can devote to things at any given moment in time. And when all of our attention, which by the way is a big piece of what executive functions consist of, how we deal with attention. When all of our attention is devoted to chatter, guess what? There's not a whole lot left over to devote to other things like, determining which foot is left versus right, or how do I compute this mathematical problem, or, what were the talking points that I was about to engage in. So that's one way that it can really, really undermine us. The other thing that chatter does is it zooms us in on the issue that we are worried about, right? So it consumes us, as I've just described it, in all of our attention. And so when you're performing under the spotlight, the form that immersion can take is when you're performing like sports, a lot of the things we do are these complex habits that we've developed over time. We've strung together very complex sequences of behavior. So I used to play baseball when I was in high school, and I used to pitch. And a pitching windup is a really complicated movement, right? You get the ball, you set your arms, you step back, you lift your knee up to as high as you can. You then, lean back further, you redistribute your weight, you're squeezing the ball in a particular way with your fingers positioned appropriately. Super, super complicated. When you're experiencing chatter and you're not sure if you're going to perform well, what you do is you hyper focus on that complex behavior. And the result is it breaks it down. It leads to something called paralysis by analysis. So I'm up there on the mound and I'm not just thinking about, all right, fastball, lights out, right? Instead it's, am I squeezing the ball tight enough? Am I, waiting enough time before I release it? Am I lifting my knee high enough? And once you start doing that, everything breaks down. So those are two ways that chatter can really sink us. Now, there are oodles and oodles of research. That's a technical term, by the way.
Oodles, yes.
Oodles that show how chatter in the form of rumination, worry, perseveration can sink people across the board, whether it is, people working in the creative arts or performance. More generally, just recently, the World Health Organization put a price tag on the cost of anxiety and depression, which we know chatter fuels in the workplace. And for the global economy, it was over $1 trillion. So these are huge issues. And just to go back again to like why it matters, why did I decide to spend my life studying this? And why did I spend a significant portion of my professional life writing a book on it? Um, we've already talked about our physical health, right? Really important thing to a lot of people, certainly myself, I think many others too. And now we've just talked about our work life and our recreational life. Like, so we're rapidly, crossing off the areas of life that really make life worth living. And chatter is the element that is crossing those things off.